can get what we are talking about. Welcome to the working group collaboration, trinational collaboration between unions. This is the third working group that we have in this first phase of the working tables that we've been doing between the Secretariat of Mexicans Abroad from Morena, the National Institute of Political Education from Morena as well, and the deputies and senators from Morena, the migrants ones. Okay, so to start, as I say, this is the third working table that we have. I'm going to show you a few of the points that we talked in the first on the first table, which was on the 18th, I guess. Yes, the 18th of May, we have that one. And we bring on with 10 points that we think we should be talking about on this specific table, the cooperation between unions in the United States, Mexico, and Canada. It was like a create a network of unions in these three countries. We need to have an agenda directory of unions in each country, so that it's going to be more easy to look to ask for help or help one to each other. They promote the new way to be the unions. We have to do take away all those things that they don't allow the people to get to join unions, specifically the migrant workers. What else? We need to check the chapter 23 of the USMCA to see how we can be better the things of the unions. That was the 18th. On the 21st, we saw different points as well. I think, and this one was like to pretty much the same, the cooperation between unions, the review of the USMCA, and some strategic to make sure that we have the way to work with more besides the frontiers. And the last one was the Casa del Obrero Delegaciones. So they have their own agenda, so they're going to send it to us so we can talk about that in the future meeting. So, okay, now we are kind of to the day. You want to bring any topic that we should be do you think we should be talking about this specific matter of the collaboration between unions? Who wants to be the first one to participate? Okay, Roselia.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm glad that we start with this meeting. I think the workers' right is very important, and one of the objects in my position in Mexico as a federal Congress, it is make an appointment with the Secretary of Work in Mexico, and we try to protect the immigrants to know the rights before to come to the United States, before to come to Canada. So before to immigrate, we should give them the rights. Because when we are in outside Mexico, and when we are like day by day, it's very hard, like go to the communities, centers, looking for help. And it's to be honest, it's very hard when you are working in as a server, as any fabric where you are working, any place that you work. It's very hard to find the time to get that knowledge. So I would like to share that with you guys. Like, it's something that we are already working in Mexico. We're looking for that meetings, and I hope so. We're going to see results soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Roselia. And one of the things that I think we already mentioned to everybody is like we are trying to consolidate reunions with the deputies, with the senators in person. They have the time to go to the United States. They are covering all the states, all the consulates in the United States. So you are a representative of any of these unions, organizations, and you want to meet with them, we can arrange something. So because we need to make sure everybody knows what is going on in Mexico. It's not just like to say, oh, we have the diputada migrante, that's good. Yeah, what does mean? What need to be the people, the second, third generation in Mexico, in the United States, they need to know what's going on in Mexico. And the same, this migrant representative, they need to go to reach these people, this second, third generation, that they have the specific needs. So we are trying to make sure we get the connection. Right now, we are talking with part of the DSA in California, in Oregon, and in Detroit. We are trying to set up these meetings with all of you. So if you have any organization that wants to meet with the representatives, just let me know and we can start working on that. So, okay, let's, one of the things we saw the last time was like we need the help because the migrant workers, most of them, they are not allowed to join unions. So, and I know the DSA is have a specific chapter of unions. So I don't know if it's a way that we should be talking about how it can be this collaboration with people that they are not allowed to join unions, but I think what they can support something like rallies or something like that. I think we should be bringing in this matter on this topic. I don't know if any of you have any experience of that.
I do actually, because I think that we have been talking about, and I heard this in the meetings last week, about immigrant workers not being able to join unions or unions closing their doors to immigrant workers. That is not quite true, in fact. In fact, there are several unions that do represent not only immigrant workers, but even undocumented workers. And I know because I worked for 17 years in one of them. UFCW in the meatpacking division, in the food processing division, which is like, all those places where they kill the cows and the pigs and make the ham. A lot of the population there at some point had a very big population of immigrant and undocumented workers. SEIU, the Justice for Janitors, also has a very strong undocumented population base. In fact, the one leader that is right now incarcerated in Colorado, Kenneth Vizguerra, came through the rank and file of SEIU as a leader worker. And so it's actually rather whether they work in industries that first are covered by the National Labor Relations Board and therefore have the protections of being able to organize in a union that the National Labor Relations Act could give. We know all the limitations that happen, especially after that, what was it? The Jose Castro case of the Supreme Court, where basically the Supreme Court made impossible for an undocumented worker who was fired to be able to recover lost wages the way everyone else does. But outside of that, they theoretically enjoy the same rights as long as it's an industry that is not agriculture. Agriculture is simply not covered under the federal legislation unless there is local legislation like there is in California or state legislation like there is in California and Massachusetts, or domestic work. Other than that, private sector undocumented workers enjoy the same rights to organize. And I just want to dispel the notion that somehow they are not allowed to join the union, or that even the unions close the doors. There might be some that more than by omission do that. And I think that we can create a movement to hold them accountable and pressure them into changing their practices. But there is no legal or a structural way in which they can actually keep undocumented workers and immigrant workers outside of the protections of a union contract. I saw union contracts that actually had obligations, contractual obligations for the employer to notify the union if La Migra was knocking at their door, so that they could alert their members who were undocumented. I've seen it. I know that it exists. There is no legal hurdle to go over, to jump over for immigrant workers to be able to enjoy the full rights of the protection of collective organizing collectively.
Thank you. And I think it's one of the main things that we should be talking about on the political education, that is information to the people to know exactly what's going on. And that's one of the things that I've been talking with the people from the National Institute of Political Education in Mexico, that they have the Sabatina Migrante, where they talk about a lot of really good stuff, but sometimes they don't see the needs of the Mexican community over there. And this is very important because everybody thinks that we are not allowed to go and join them, which is not true. In the case when I got to the United States in the 99, I remember were no more redadas in the center job. That's because the unions, they complain about that and they get to disagreement. And I know that because I asked when I get my blue paper, say from the Social Security number, that I say, I had money here from you, but I don't have your register. So just come talk to me, and I was so scared. I talked to my employer and say, don't worry, they used to do this kind of redadas, but there is no more. So I think it is one of the main things that we need to start doing is like educating people to this way, no matter their legal status, they can just try to join their the unions. Anyway, we have Alma. ¿Qué tal? Bienvenida. Alma is from Canada. Alma, we are using the AI companion, you can just check. Y estamos hablando pues de las experiencias de el poder, los migrantes, el ser parte de los sindicatos, los cuales se ha dicho que no está permitido o que no los reciben. Si bien es cierto, dice Luis, que en algunos casos sí se ha dado se da eso por diferentes razones. La realidad es que sí hay sindicatos que sí están cubriendo y protegiendo a la comunidad migrante. Entonces sería explorar, y en este directorio que vamos a hacer, pues tener esa información. No sé cómo sea en Canadá, evidentemente. Esto no sé si aplique, Luis, a Canadá, pero en dado caso de que no, ahorita Alma nos dice. Anybody else want to add another point of this discussion?
Yeah, I like all the information that Luisa just shared. I think it's very helpful to know that there is a pretext of unions here in the U.S. Protecting workers with immigration status that might be like undocumented. There in my union, I know they make it difficult for undocumented workers to access membership. We still do have members of that status, and yeah, a lot of the time they're scared to go to the unions and ask for help, ask for the unions to represent them, and to exercise their rights as union workers, because they feel this stigma coming down from them. But yeah, knowing that that's an obstacle in our union, and knowing that we have members that have been affected, we have members that have been picked up in ICE raids in the local Northern California jurisdiction. Yeah, we've actually formed a caucus to try and solve this movement within the IBEW. I'll share the Instagram link right here so people can see. This is out of Local 11 in Los Angeles, but we have one up here in the Bay Area where I live too. It's a movement that's starting to spread. Luis, you have your hand up?
I was gonna say that not to justify your union, but it is different for the building trades. The IBEW is a building trades union, and so for the building trades, electricians, pipe fitters, bricklayers, the union is the employer. It serves as the hiding hole, and so the burden of complying with federal law for hiding is on the union. So I can see how the union is going to be a lot more careful about letting somebody with improper documentation come through, because they are the ones who are going to send them to the jobs with the contractors, right? It's different in a plant, let's say a meatpacking plant, where the hiring agent is the company. They are supposed to be checking papers. If they didn't because they want to exploit workers, is their problem. The job of the union is to defend them in front of the employer. The union doesn't get into the part of the legal status of the worker, and that's different, because then the union can say, you know, I don't care. That person works in the plant and therefore enjoys the rights of any other worker and enjoys the protections of the union. If there is any irregularity with the way he was hired, it was the employer's fault or actions or whatever you want to call it, but it's not about, it's not us. Our only responsibility is to defend that worker. It's different for the building trades because you are actually the ones who hire to be able to send them to the contractors according to the waiting list. So not saying, I mean, it is complex. Obviously your union doesn't want to get some liability with the federal government about how they do their stuff. Not justifying them, but it's kind of like a little bit more understandable.
Okay. Y solo para aquellos, un breve resumen, Kevin hablaba de que en su sindicato sí se da un poco eso de no recibir a las personas migrantes, a lo cual Luis comenta que si bien es cierto, es porque son diferentes, y ahí es donde hay excepciones, en donde hay sindicatos en el que un sindicato normalmente representa a los trabajadores, pero no los contrata. El que contrata es el que debería de estar revisando papeles y cubrir lo legal, y entonces un sindicato tiene la responsabilidad nada más de cuidar a los empleados y no ver cómo están siendo contratados, a diferencia del sindicato de Kevin, en donde él sí está exactamente esta parte de contratar y evidentemente no podría, por las mismas cuestiones legales, contratar a personas indocumentadas. Ok. So on this one, I raise a question for me. That is a way that unions like Kevin's one, they can support a group of workers that they want to make their own union or something. Just help them to build their union instead of just bringing them added to them. That is a way we can achieve that.
Yeah, I mean, we have the caucus, and we are trying to stand in solidarity. We're trying to pass these two resolutions that I linked in the chat to try to show that, like, we're putting in an effort to do a political education, to inform membership of their rights, and do whatever we can to. There's also people of mixed status that are being targeted. It's not just people that are undocumented, who might have gotten to work with different, like, somebody else's papers, however the situation may be. If they have like a residency status or if they have DACA status, they're also being targeted. They're also being detained, and yeah, there's also stigma for them to ask for help. So we're passing these resolutions, and we created this body to try to educate membership of their rights. As far as creating a different union so that other people have access to it, that is a pretty good proposition, a pretty good avenue. It's just going to take a lot on our part, which I'm in that movement to try to develop the rank and file of the union to be more open to that, because historically the building trades has been a very competitive and a very hostile union when it comes to organizing with other unions, even among electricians, carpenters, plumbers, communications workers, all of these unions, which are in the same AFL-CIO, they don't like to work with each other. They're constantly fighting with each other over who has the right to work where, and whose job it is to lay down the bricks, and whose job it is to put the hardware in. So yeah, that's something we're trying to break apart and create stronger unity between workers. But yeah, this is on the issue of immigration and the rights of Latin American workers specifically. This has been our development and our response to it.
Ok, thank you. Como decía, sí, dice que sí, no se meten de lleno a eso, es bastante complicado, pero para eso tienen el caucus en el cual están exactamente viendo eso, y además de que una de las realidades es que a veces estos sindicatos, pues hay un conflicto entre ellos, lo cual también podría dificultar esto. So, anybody else want to add another point of this conversation? I know, Jennifer, you have any thoughts about what should be talking about this union collaboration between Mexico, United States and Canada?
I'm glad to hear, things coming back still to immigrant workers. But yeah, it's pretty big, and so, or pretty broad. So I'm just happy to hear the ideas and learn what we might be able to do.
I have a question for any of you. In the United States, here in Mexico, when you are working for a big company, they don't ask you, they used to add you to these sindicatos charros, and you start paying your corporation for them. All the time that I was working in the United States, more 20 years, I saw that doesn't apply for most of the jobs over there. They have a big corporation, and they do that. But how is that thing in the United States? You need to request to be part of the union, and you are just you are added to one without asking you.
First of all, it depends on whether there is a union in the first place in your workplace, because in the United States, union density in most of the private sector is very small. It's like 9% of workers have a union in their workplace. So let's say that you come to the United States and start working in a auto plant, right? Like if you are kind of like in the Rust Belt where the original UAW started, most likely you're gonna be in a union plant. But if you are in the South, Alabama, Tennessee, Texas, etc., most likely there is no union there. So you have to still get together with your coworkers and organize a union and negotiate your contract. Now, whether you are you need to be part of the union or not depends on the state, because federal law allows for something that is called union security clauses in the collective bargaining agreements, in the contracts. Yeah, union security clause basically says that anyone who comes and works in that place either has to be a member or pay the agency fee, which is the cost of representation, for bargaining, for representing, for all of that stuff. In certain states, wrongly called right to work because it's a misnomer, what they do is that they make it optional, right? If you want to, you join the union and pay your dues. Otherwise, you don't have to. And it's part of that strategy. And that happens more in the southern states like Texas, Alabama, Arizona. And the purpose of that is to defund the union, because at the same time, the law mandates the union to represent everyone the same. And if a non-union worker puts a grievance that is going to cost money to process and to take it to arbitration, the union is still obligated by law to go forward with that. And that is going to deplete the resources of the union. So it's like having a law in the city that says you don't have to pay for your local taxes, but if you have the need for an ambulance or a fire engine, you have the right to that, right? And now the government can deny you access to those services. What's happening is that there is less and less resources, which is what keeps the union strong. And eventually more people say, wait, well, why am I paying for this if it's really bad? And more people start dropping out, and that weakens the union. So it really depends on the state, and it changes. And there is I think about 27 states that are so-called right to work. And Jennifer, I'll leave it to you.
Just give me a second to the translation. Ok, lo que dice Luis es que todo depende de qué estado, que actualmente solamente es 9% de los trabajadores los que están representados por sindicatos, que todo depende de los estados. Hay una ley federal, mas sin embargo cada estado puede hacerlo y muchas veces los empleados, los trabajadores deciden mejor no participar, precisamente pues para tener, no pagar estas cuotas hacia los sindicatos, pero evidentemente eso disminuye la protección que puedan tener. Go ahead, Jennifer.
An example or a little more about particularly being a public worker or state worker. And in Michigan before 2012, and when I hired into Eastern Michigan, I was automatically UAW. I don't remember signing up to pay dues. I was certainly happy to, but you were automatically part of the union and you paid dues. There was no opting out. But after 2012, the state went right to work. But our governor just about a year ago, ended right to work for the state. But there's a Supreme Court decision called Janus that makes it so us as public workers, people can still opt out. And again, what Luis was saying, we still have to represent them, or we can get sued if they don't think we tried hard enough.
Okay, sí, aquí ya lo que dice también que en algún momento de su historia laboral sí tuvo que entrar en un sindicato en donde no se le preguntó y en automático estaba pagando, lo cual no hay ningún problema, está de acuerdo con eso, pero que sí que a partir del 2012 cambiaron las reglas y ella podría o cualquier empleado podría hacerse a un lado. Algo que sí no mencioné hace rato era lo que decía, la obligación del sindicato es proteger a todos los trabajadores. Eso tiene que hacerlo, en dado caso de no hacerlo, puede ser demandado por los mismos. Hacia adelante, Rosalia.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to add the only time that I've been part of a union, it was when I was working on the state as a mental health technician. And I remember the training, that it was part of my training to know about the union. And then it was on my decision if I would like to sign it. So I guess it's very important at least to know that that we can sign and get this right. Of course, we need to pay for, because some of them union represent us, and I really like the union because I was like hearing that they was making meetings, and we can use our break to enjoy the meetings. I guess it's very important that they do the meetings at the workplace and invite everyone at least once a month to know about, to hear everyone. The only thing that I was disagree, it was with Mexican community, Mexican workers, that I don't see it at all on the meetings, and we need to. I know that it's a challenge, but we need to push a little bit our community to know that it's an advance. It's a great thing to enjoy the union, and that's it. Another places that I've been working, it was like a lot of violations. I work all the worker rights. It was sometimes a disaster, and I try to organize the workers, but to be honest, it's very hard to organize a union. So I really respect the fabrics, the places that get at that goal. And I have of course, you can have a bad union probably if all the members do not like working on. But that's the point. We need to be involved. And I'm trying to, to talk with the Secretary of Work in Mexico, that we need to know the rights before to go out from Mexico. That's my point, because in my experience, we need that. And then we can decide if we're going to enjoy or not the union. Okay, thank you.
Gracias. Aquí lo que decía Roselia, que en su única experiencia trabajando en Estados Unidos fue en una clínica de salud mental, en donde sí se le dio la capacitación y se le preguntó si quería o no quería participar. Algo que está mencionado también es la necesidad de que los migrantes, antes de ir hacia Estados Unidos o a cualquier lado, conozcan estos derechos, algo que ya está intentando trabajar aquí con la Secretaría del Trabajo en México. Igual menciona pues lo complicado que es a veces de los mexicanos de unirse a una unión, lo cual me trae a esta parte de, I don't know in the United States, but here in Mexico, mostly on the construction industry, they pay these charros unions a little, what we call mordidas, on money under the table, so they don't bother to the construction. But when you ask the workers if they want to join the union, they say no. Why? Because the wages there are too low, so they don't want to give money to unions because they need that money. That's what is the relationship in the United States between the money that is making somebody that is joining unions and somebody that is on this sector that they don't have unions. That's the same thing, that there is not enough money.
I actually happen to know the statistics from the Department of Labor. The Bureau of Labor Statistics tells you that union workers in the United States earn in average 25% more in wages than non-union workers and enjoy better benefits like health insurance and other, free time, pay time off and stuff like that at a greater rate than non-union workers. The big difference between the way that unions work in the United States versus Mexico is that over here in Mexico, we have a very great and strong pro-union law that comes out of the revolution, the Constitution of 1917, which was very revolutionary for its time. And in Mexico, you can organize a union with only signing 30% of your coworkers, and you get recognition. In the United States, that only gets you the right to have an election, that you still have to win by 50% plus one of the workers in that workplace. And in the United States, the employer can campaign against having a union. And they would rather not have a union, and they will do captive audience meetings and do a lot of stuff to combat the unionization. In Mexico, the employers don't have the right to have a say whether the workers unionize or not. So they have taken a different strategy here, which is to use those charro unions, those pro-business unions that are made up to kind of come sometimes before a manufacturing plant opens, they already have a union. And there are no workers yet, but they already have a union, right? Because that's the way that they occupy that space that workers could legitimately, and that's what the labor reform of 2019 was all about making sure that workers had access to replacing their unions and getting a real union in place there. And so in the United States, it's different because if the employer has the option, they will rather not have a union at all. In Mexico, because they don't have the option, they instead bring a charro union. And that's how a lot of these, that go and put those flags outside of the construction sites started coming out, because it's kind of like selling protection. It's like a mafia it's a racket basically selling protection from other real unions to be able to represent. And in a way, it's a way of extorting money from the construction sites. Whereas in the United States, like a construction site will rather not have union contractors, but if it's a requirement, then the contractor can go to the union hall and say, I'm gonna need, to the IBA worker, IBEW, and say, I'm gonna need 20 electricians, and go to the carpenters, I'm gonna need 10 of these, and then go to the pipefitters and say, I'm gonna need, and so you don't have the same kind of problems. It's like the problems are entirely different because of the legal settings for unions in both countries.
Perfect. Okay,
Very quickly, I put the link on the labor notes article that says exactly what kind of contract clauses a union can put in their contracts to protect immigrant workers.
Perfect. Thank you, Luis. Pues resumen así, dice que él tiene el dato, por ejemplo, de que las personas, los empleados que están con un sindicato reciben el 25% más de salario que aquel que no está. Igual y hace la diferenciación entre los sindicatos en México y en Estados Unidos, en donde en México a partir de 1917 hay se puede decir que es una ley pro sindical más fuerte, se ocupa nada más el 30% de las firmas de los trabajadores para de poder crear un sindicato, mientras que en Estados Unidos tiene que haber unas elecciones donde el 50% más uno voten a favor de eso. En México no es opcional, las empresas tienen que tener un sindicato, que es donde muchas veces entran los sindicatos charros para evitar que se formen estos sindicatos, y que en Estados Unidos sí hay lugares en donde sí el mismo empleador puede decir, aquí no necesito una unión, un sindicato. I think that's the importance of this table more than they were talking about undocumented workers, migrants over there, is what we can learn from Mexico, from United States, and vice versa. Because I remember when I met Luisa from the DSA, that was a meeting about this union in Mexico, and I was complaining against this union, and she didn't understand. Say, why? Say, because the unions is not the same, the US unions that they are protecting the workers. In Mexico, they don't protect the worker. So that's something that we need to change, and I think that's the kind of help that we can, in the US unions can provide to Mexican workers. Okay, anybody else wants to add another point?
Yeah, on that same topic, in unions here in the United States, we have a lot of things in many of these unions. They call them tiers or brackets, where they hire in workers for separate fields. Like here in my local 617 for the IBEW, we have tiers such as sound and communications worker and inside wireman. Inside wireman is the one that gets the most. And then in other locals, they have CECW, construction electrician, construction worker. And these different tiers, their contracts are different, so they don't all have the same protections. Like sound and communications workers don't get as much paid into their insurance. Their insurance benefits aren't as good. They don't get as much per hour. Their overtime isn't the same. So as an inside wireman, as a electrician in the buildings, we get a double time here in my local. I don't think the sound and communications workers get that unless it's a Sunday. And yeah, this exists in the construction industry. This also exists in a lot of other industries. Notoriously, the Teamsters Union and a lot of warehousing unions have these tiers where you might have like a senior delivery driver who might be getting $40-50 an hour, but the guy working on the line, the guy packaging boxes, lady, the worker packaging material, they're only getting $20 an hour, and that's the max union scale. And there's a lot of barriers. There's ways to move into different brackets, but there's a lot of barriers. Like in the IBEW, you have 3 years of apprenticeship for sound and communications and 5 years of apprenticeship for inside wiremen. If you do sound and communications first, which it's easier to get into, none of your education counts. So you have to start all the way over. You have to start making a first-year apprenticeship wage, which over here, my local pays like $27 an hour, and graduated wage for sound and communications, it's close to like $50 an hour. So you have to take that big pay cut if you want to try to move into a better field. And it's like that for a lot of unions here in the country. So sometimes people complain about stuff like that in the unions here in the US. And yeah, as far as it being a deterrent, people would rather be union than not union. But yeah, we do have there's different tricks that the unions will play to try to get a bigger market share, to try to get better not better contracts, just more contracts, and to grow their membership so they can collect dues for their organization. What they use those dues for, not just for the membership, also for lobbying local political parties, lobbying more Democrats and stuff like that, for paying the managers in the offices of the union halls, whatever it may be. But yeah, that's another system that in my caucus work we're trying to organize against, or we're trying to raise awareness to, is the brackets and the different ranking systems.
Perfect. Thank you, Kevin. Lo que él decía es que inclusive dentro de los también sindicatos no todo está bien como debe de ser, sino que hay diferentes niveles y para poder pasar de un nivel a otro hay muchos obstáculos. Hay muchas veces que una persona está haciendo lo posible por crecer dentro de las empresas y al momento de pasar a otro tiene que volver a iniciar. Hay personas que están en un nivel en donde son $20 lo máximo que van a poder ganar y de ahí no van a pasar y así va subiendo. Cada sindicato tiene sus propias complejidades, que es parte de lo que él está pues trabajando allá en su sindicato para cambiar estas tácticas. Lo que me trae a esta pregunta ya hablamos normalmente cuando hablamos de sindicatos, hablamos de empresas privadas, pero ¿qué pasa con el gobierno? Aquí en México, desde mi punto de vista, tenemos un serio problema con las instituciones de gobierno donde los empleados están sindicalizados y se han apoderado de ciertas posiciones que son para ellos y para sus familiares y que son cosas que han estado ahí. ¿Cuál es la diferencia entre un sindicato, que aquí en México parece que no la hay, diferencia de un sindicato de una organización del Estado con una empresa privada? But I'm asking is, what is the difference? Because in Mexico, the government, they have people, they are in unions, and they are kidnap those positions, and they don't want to let anybody else join them. And I think that's a big problem, because in Mexico, pretty much it's looking like it's the same, the government, that the private sector. And I think, I don't know how it's in the United States, but I think it should be different. What is the experience in the United States?
So typically in a collective bargaining agreement in the United States, there is something called the management rights clause, which any company that is well, before I go into that, in Mexico, there is still, all of those state employees are under something called Apartado B, or like Section B of the federal labor law, right? De la Ley Federal de Trabajo. There is very little difference in terms of like the kind of rights that they get. In the United States, it's not quite the same. In the United States, state workers, whether they are federal, state, or municipal level, are not part of or are not covered under the National Labor Relations Act, but they depend on the voluntary recognition of the government for them to be able to organize into unions, which is exactly what Trump just did. Just with a stroke of a pen, he basically got away with all the government unions at the federal level. The state level, each goes state by state, and then at the municipal level, it goes municipality by municipality, right? And in some places, certain state workers have the right to organize, but others don't. Hospital workers, teachers, I mean, it's like a bunch of, nobody touches the police unions though. Those enjoy the greatest protections and rights everywhere. And so, and when you negotiate an agreement, typically the employer will want to have a management rights clause, which says they have the right to hire and fire with cause. A good union would always include a cause, union security in terms of job security, in terms that nobody can be fired except for cause, right? There is a good reason to fire somebody. In Mexico, I have seen this not only in the public sector, not only with government workers, but even in the private sector, and I've seen it with some auto assemblers, that the union has a clause that allows them to decide who gets hired and who doesn't get hired. And in many cases, there is even a clause that allows them to inherit the position that they have in the government job. I can tell you, I worked at the National Institute of Cardiology in this Periférico and Tlalpan. My sister works at the Esta, and she has coworkers who basically inherited their job positions because somebody else who was part of the union or was in the bargaining unit before retired or whatever. And for me, that is highly questionable, right? I mean, you might have questions about whether the employer is going to hire the right people or whether it's going to use favoritism. But that is no different for the union. And when we see it, it lends itself to corruption. And in my dialogue that I have with Mexican unions, I have questioned this over and over. It seems a very undemocratic and corruptible element of union contracts. And it doesn't matter. Independent unions do it. Charro unions do it. Everyone wants to have control of who works, who has access to the jobs. The best case that I can see is the telefonistas. They have a bipartite committee that has people go through a selection process with very clear punctuation of you go through exams and you accumulate points and that, and maybe there is some my uncle worked here before and that might give you a point or two, but it doesn't define your entire ability to access the job. And it's bipartite. Both the employer and the union sit in those committees, kind of analyzing who are the candidates. For me, that's more democratic if you were going to do something democratic. But unfortunately, I have seen some of our independent democratic allies insert those kind of clauses in their contracts saying no, we have to, because otherwise the company will bring only anti-union people and then turn it around and yeah, but the response is not, then we are the ones who are going to decide who gets hired, because then you also, are have the risk of getting corruption in your own ranks too. So.
Que Luis dice que, por ejemplo, que hay diferencias. Aquí en México está una sección B de la Ley Federal del Trabajo, la cual tiene que ver con exactamente estas personas sindicalizadas en el Estado, algo que en Estados Unidos no es, y que eso es lo que ha permitido, por ejemplo, en este momento que Donald Trump llegue y de un plumazo quite a todas estas personas del gobierno, la cual, bueno, se puede prestar para cosas no correctas, pero también ve esta parte en México en el que la corrupción que ha habido no solamente en los sindicatos del sector público, sino que inclusive de las empresas privadas, en donde hay una cláusula en estos contratos en donde los únicos que pueden decidir quién entra a trabajar son las mismas personas del sindicato, y que en muchas de estas ocasiones se heredan estos puestos a personas que no necesariamente son las mejores calificadas, que el único ejemplo que ha visto donde hay un poco menos de corrupción y es más lo que es lo más cercano a lo democrático es en teléfonos, en los telefonistas, en el cual es una conciliación entre el sindicato y el patrón, en el cual se toman en consideración varios factores para ver a quién se contratan. El discurso de los sindicatos de no permitir que el patrón sea quien contrate es el decir, si te dejamos a ti que lo hagas, vas a meter a puras personas que están en contra de los sindicatos y vas a terminar deshaciendo este sindicato, lo cual pues podría ser de verdad, pero también lo que está lejos de la realidad. Y yo comparto la idea de que en México los sindicatos son bastante corruptos y sí habría que explorar la posibilidad de cómo ajustar eso para beneficio del país. So, anybody else wants to add another point to the table?
Yeah, on the subject of nepotism and the in the hierarchy of the unions, that has historically been a big issue here in the United States. I don't know if it was uh, exactly how much in the public sector unions, but in a lot of the construction unions, and notoriously in the Teamsters Union, which is one of the biggest unions here in the United States. Yeah, it's been a big thing for a while. When I was growing up, the IBW looked very different from what it looked like today. It was kind of similarly as you described. A handful of families controlled executive board, business representatives, president of the local unions, and not just the unions, but as part of the hiring process for a lot of these locals, you sit down with some of the contractors as well, some of the business owners, and they will interview you when you want to enter these unions, and they ultimately get to decide whether you get in or not. So a lot of the times, you know, they just picked people that like they knew personally. So the president, the business rep, their kids got in, or their brother-in-law, family members, friends, whoever. Sometimes in some towns, if you knew the mayor could get you in the union, so you can get a good job like that. But yeah, that started to break apart. I want to say in the 90s, when just like especially here in the Bay Area in San Francisco, the scale of construction and urbanization and how fast all of this was moving in order to get a decent market share. A lot of these unions couldn't keep up these practices, so that started to break apart. And it was through these. I don't know if it's going to be helpful for Mexico to kind of copy a model like this, but in the United States, all these new recruits eventually created rank and file movements, and through like whatever democratic methods that we had of holding elections within the union, through there's a big push right now in my union to understand Robert's rules in order to understand parliamentary procedure, so we can challenge the leadership of these unions that kind of want to keep it closed off, that want to keep union membership inaccessible to the broad people, to the broad workers. There's a lot of push for that. Just understanding the mechanisms, however we can, and pushing campaigns to run rank and file members for leadership and kind of break this apart. And that started specifically with the Teamsters and the Teamsters for a Democratic Union, I want to say in the 70s. And yeah, it worked. It worked. It had a very good effect. And that method of rank and file organizing has been picking up lately again too, especially after we've seen that any federal protections that we might have had under Democratic administrations are quickly going away, and we're getting back to our more tried and true ground floor militant unionism.
Gracias, Kevin. Sí, básicamente, y resumen, es, en Estados Unidos también se da, por ejemplo, el nepotismo en los sindicatos, es algo que también se está dando por allá. Habla del caso específico en San Francisco, cuando a partir de los 90 se empieza a cambiar esto, pero eso es debido al crecimiento de la demanda de trabajadores, los cual impide que se continúe con esta práctica debido a que la demanda de trabajadores era muy grande y que no podían estos líderes sindicales ser quienes estuvieran contratando, pero que se han dado estos casos también para allá. No sabe si sería bueno que México copiara alguna de estos modelos, pero pues bueno, están sobre la mesa. At the end, it's just and we need to learn what's going on in Mexico and United States, and so this way we can get better vision about what's going on, what is in front of us. So I don't know if anybody have any other questions. Alguien más que quiera hacer alguna otra agregar. If you see today was not too many points, but I think with this main key about this table is going to be like a kind of education to know, to learn how it work in Mexico, the unions, in the United States and Canada. So that's the only way we can, I think, start doing some proposals for the near future. Bueno, como ven, en esta no hubo demasiadas propuestas, fue más o menos como intercambio de ideas, pero necesitamos ahondar en el conocimiento que tenemos para entonces, sí, sabiendo cómo funcionan cada uno de los sindicatos en estos países, poder hacer unas propuestas más concretas. Adelante, diputada Roselia, después Mario.
Gracias. Solo me gustaría agregar que en esta campaña que estamos haciendo sobre los derechos laborales, tanto de Estados Unidos y Canadá, el día de mañana tenemos un evento virtual. Por ahí dejé el link en mi Instagram, se va a compartir por redes sociales. Es importante para nosotros comentar que vamos a estar haciendo esto en conjunto con la Secretaría del Migrante en Michoacán. So, virtualmente por Zoom van a estar conectados son los enlaces en cada uno de los municipios. Esto es como protección para, pues, por lo menos los que están encargados de esa secretaría en cada municipio, pues tengan acceso a esa información. Y asimismo podemos, pues, dar seguimiento a esa protección de sus derechos laborales. Igual lo haremos con los mismos compañeros de la Secretaría del Migrante de Michoacán, pero para los derechos de Canadá. Entonces, en la medida de lo posible, este tipo de eventos que tenemos, espero me ayude por ahí Diego a compartírselo para que estén pues al pendiente de lo que se esté haciendo y por supuesto en esas mesas de trabajo, pues también lo comentemos o se sume al trabajo que estamos haciendo, ¿no? Pues bueno, agradecerles muchísimo esta conversación.
Gracias, diputada. Sí, tomorrow we're going to have at 2 o'clock Mexico City time this working table about labor rights. Is going to be our partner, Jorge Mujica, who is the one going to be talking about this. I'm going to send you the link of the Facebook page that is where it's going to be transmitted that 1 hour before the transmission starts. So you're gonna get that information. And this is going to be participating in the Secretariat of the Michoacan Migrants. So I think this one of the things that we want to go and reach all these unions, all these secretariats that they are helping or they are in charge of see what's going on with all migrant workers. Adelante, Mario.
Amigos, compañeros, es solamente para finalizar el comentario y redondeando las participaciones todas excelentes. Habría también que hacer como un listado de las buenas prácticas que han tenido los sindicatos, porque finalmente, digo, no todo es malo, ¿eh? Si hablamos como de las partes que se pueden mejorar, claro, no son perfectibles, pero dentro de todo este universo, pues sí tienen más días de descanso, sí tienen más derechos laborales, tienen acceso a créditos bancarios con condiciones pues mejor que un banco, ¿no? Precisamente. Y creo yo que hay mucho también de que es muy rescatable finalmente en los 3 países, Estados Unidos, Canadá y México. Entonces creo yo que también habría que redondear esta propuesta con estas mejores prácticas y obviamente ensalzar, ¿no? Buscar las mejoras pertinentes. Es cuanto, compañeros, gracias.
Gracias, Mario. What he was saying is like we need to make a list as well of the good practices that the union they've been achieved for the workers. I think he thinks that he needs to be. It is very important. So it's not just everything is bad. So we need to make that list. Bueno, ¿alguien más o con esto daríamos por terminada nuestra tercer mesa de trabajo de Cooperación Sindical Trinacional? En fin de semana les hago llegar el reporte de estas 3 mesas con todos los puntos que se vieron y ya una vez con eso empezaremos así como el día de hoy el día de mañana vamos a tener la charla con Jorge Mujica. Yo espero que igual tener una con cada uno de ustedes sobre todos los puntos que ustedes han puesto sobre la mesa, utilizar, por ejemplo, la gran experiencia de Luis en estos temas. Para enfrentarnos y escucharlo a él, hacerle todas las preguntas, hacer el intercambio de ideas y que ahí salgamos más fortalecidos. Lo mismo allá con Kevin, no se diga con Humberto, que también lleva una larga historia de lucha por derechos laborales, sindicales, etcétera. Nos daremos el tiempo para hablar con todos y cada uno de ustedes. Nos faltan ya pocas mesas para terminar esta primera ronda. El día de mañana, como les digo, tenemos la reunión con el compañero Mujica, Derechos Laborales, y después los estaríamos viendo el día viernes con Derechos Laborales Transnacionales a las 10 de la mañana de la Ciudad de México, Migrantes Indígenas a las 3 de la tarde y la revisión del TEMEC a las 6 de la tarde el próximo viernes. Entonces, yo les hago llegar toda la información de lo del de mañana. Espero que nos puedan ayudar a replicar esta información. Y pues igual ya tomé todas las listas que me mandó Kevin, lo que mandó Luis, y también se los estaré haciendo llegar en el reporte. Bueno, pues sería todo en esta ocasión. Muchas gracias a todos por haber estado con nosotros y nos vemos en la siguiente.